Stanford University.
Welcome to Lecture 12 of Stanford CS 193P, spring of 2016. Today we have auto layout, which we've actually been doing quite a bit of auto layout so far, but we're going to talk a lot more in detail about the concepts of auto layout and things like that. And we're going to introduce an important auto layout feature called size classes. Okay? All right, so let's dive into auto layout. So you already know a lot about auto layout, right? For example, you know you can use those dashed blue lines when you drag things in and move things around to kind of tell Xcode what you intend about how things are laid out. Okay, but you know that those blue lines are really only just kind of a hint, right? But you can say reset to suggested constraints, and it'll use the dashed blue line information to try and guess what constraints you want. And sometimes that's what you want, sometimes not. Really, that's just minimal help from the system to do auto layouts, kind of maybe to get you started or to get some initial constraints or something like that. Okay, and you know that you can look in the size inspector. Okay, you can click on any view and look in the size inspector, and down there you'll see all of the constraints. We've looked at those before that are on a particular view. Okay, you also know that you can click on a constraint itself and look at it in the attributes inspector. So just like you can click on a view and inspect that, you can click on a constraint, like a little I-beam or some bar, something that's connecting something to an edge or something. You can click on those things. You can even double click on them and edit them kind of in a little window, but you can single click on them and then edit them in the attributes inspector as well. Now we know that another way we can set constraints is to control drag, like we control drag to the edge and say, make it be a certain distance from this edge. Okay, we saw that quite a bit. That control dragging can also be done between views. So you can control drag between two views and then say, make these two be the same width. Okay, things like that. And we'll see a little bit of that today in the demo. So that control dragging is probably the #1 way you do auto layout. Okay. But there's also a couple of menus down in the bottom right corner where that menu that you bring up that says reset to suggested constraints or update frames, that thing. There's two other little menus right by it, okay, the pin and arrange menus, and they also let you say things like, make these, you could select 5 views and then bring up the arrange menu and say, make all of these equal widths, okay, and that would be a constraint on all 5 of the views to make them equal widths, okay. So those menus, frankly, we don't use them that much because the control drag is so incredibly convenient for doing that, but sometimes we will. You can look at your constraints by inspecting things, but really the way to see a big picture of all the constraints is in the document outline. Okay? Remember the document outline? That's the thing on the left in the storyboard that you can kind of bring out with that little button on the bottom. And it shows you all your views and the hierarchy of it and all that stuff. Well, it'll also show all your constraints in there. Okay, big long list of your constraints, and that's a good place where you can go to see them. It also has a constraint resolution UI, which I might have briefly shown, but I'll certainly show today, where it'll actually tell you all the constraints that are conflicting or not fully specifying things, that kind of stuff. So it's kind of, document outline is your constraint headquarters to go and try and fix things with constraints and understand what's going on with your constraints. Now, mastering auto layout requires experience. I can tell you all these things, what the things you can do are, but until you get in there and start trying to lay things out and make things line up and do things like that, you really won't be able to master it. Okay, so it requires experience. So hopefully in your final project you'll have some UIs that require quite a bit of auto layout. The UIs we've had so far have not required that much auto layout because I haven't gotten to this lecture yet. So we've been using stack view a lot. Okay, we've been heavily relying on stack view to make it so we don't have to do so much auto layout, because stack view kind of is a thing for doing auto layout in a very simple way when you want to line things up in grids. Okay, so there's no substitute for experience on auto layout. It is possible to do auto layout constraints from code. Okay, there is a class called NSLayoutConstraint, and it does all the things you can do in the storyboard and possibly even a little bit more. Actually, definitely a little bit more. I'm not going to teach that in this course. If you want to learn about it, you might think about trying to do something in your final project, maybe. It requires a certain understanding of mathematics and really understanding relationships between things to really set things up and make things work. It's a heck of a lot easier just to do it all in the storyboard. So unless you want to kind of make that one of your investigative things for your final project, which you're going to see is required that you go investigate something that I don't teach in lecture, you probably want to try and do auto layout from the storyboard. Okay? And you can certainly do everything you need to do almost all the time in your storyboard. Okay? So let's see what's next here. Let's talk about rotation. Okay? So sometimes when you rotate your UI, the geometry of it changes so drastically that auto layout is not enough to reposition everything. Okay? A great example of this is our calculator. Okay? Our calculator had 5 buttons across and 4 buttons down, I think. Okay? And that looked fine or maybe it was 4 across and 5 down, I guess. And that looked fine in portrait. All the buttons were almost square. They were rectangular, but they were close to being square. But when we went to landscape, all of our buttons got really squished down. Okay? They're really wide and really short. Okay? And really it would have been a lot better if we had gone 5 across and 4 down, because we have more space across than we do have down in landscape. Okay, well there's no way to do auto layout, no way, so that would happen. Okay, there's no way to put any relationships between them so that they would just somehow flip over. Some of the buttons would flip over from being along the top, for example, to being along the left. Okay, so you can't do it that way. So what would you do if you wanted to build a calculator that repositioned the buttons when you flipped it over? Because it's not just the calculator that might want to do this. For example, you know, when you're in the master of a split view, okay, you're not in portrait, you're probably on an iPad, or at least you might be on an iPhone 6 Plus. In that master, you also want it to be the right arrangement of buttons, okay, more like iPhone portrait, okay, than iPad. Okay, so the solution to doing this is called size classes. Okay, so your view controllers, any view controller that you're doing, like the calculator view controller, always lives in a size class environment, okay, for its width and its height. Okay, and that size class is either compact or regular. Regular means it's not compact. Okay, so your view controller for horizontally and vertically will get something told to it, okay, you are in a compact vertical environment, or you are in a compact horizontal environment. And you can react to that. Okay, so in the calculator's case, if we're in a compact vertical environment, let's put 5 across and 4 down, because it's squished down vertically, so we'll spread them out a little bit. And if we're not, then we'll go ahead and use the vertical space and make it be 4 across and 5 down. Okay? So getting all this all the different kinds of aspect ratios and things for all the devices to fit into this compact and regular, you know, it's not a perfect fit, but here's a kind of general idea of how these fit, all right? So the iPhone 6 Plus, in portrait, right, when it's standing upright, basically, that is compact width, regular height. Makes perfect sense, right? Okay, compact width, regular height. When you go to landscape, now it's compact height, regular width. Okay, so iPhone 6 Plus makes the most sense of all of the devices. Okay, now iPhone non-Plus, okay, is compact in width. In portrait, it's compact in width and regular height, but in landscaped, okay, non-6 Plus now I'm talking about here, it's compact in both directions. So on a normal iPhone, non-Plus iPhone, in width, you would think it would be regular, because it was regular when it was in portrait in height, but no, it's compact. So you can actually tell the difference between whether you're on a 6 Plus or a regular iPhone 4S or 5 or 6 or whatever, non-Plus, because you'll be compact in both directions in landscape. Okay, so it's just kind of weird, get used to that. iPad is always regular in both directions, because it's so big, it's not compact in any way, in any direction. However, if you're an MVC that is in the master of a split view, you'll be compact in width. Okay, understandably, right, because you're kind of jammed in there. This whole system, by the way, is extensible. It's not just rock solid, you know, hooked up to whether you're on a 6 Plus or an iPhone or in a split view master or whatever. It has a whole mechanism for an MVC to find out what size class it's in. It can even say, based on its environment, I want to be in this size class, and then if it has MVCs inside of it, like it's a navigation controller or something like that, then they would inherit that size class information, okay? Now, I'm not going to talk about that, all the code side of it, The only code you're probably going to be interested in is this method here in View Controller, self-trait collection, horizontal size class and vertical size class, and it's going to give you back compact or regular. Okay, so that's how you'll know if you're compact or regular. Now, that's only if you wanted to react to your compactness in code. A lot of times we're going to be doing this in our storyboard. Okay, and I'm going to show you how in the storyboard we react to that. So in summary, it looks like this, okay? You got compact width and regular width, compact height and regular height. So iPhones non-plus in landscape are here, compact, compact. Regular width compact is iPhone 6 Plus in landscape. Regular height and compact width is iPhones in portrait, or you're the master of a split view. And then iPads are regular in both, okay? So if you want to look at the calculator, for example, it would look something like this, right? Now, I'm drawing my UI here as if I've adapted to this. In this case right here, I've decided to go 4 across and 5 down because I got a lot of down, a lot of vertical space. Whereas here I've gone 5 across and 4 down because I'm kind of compact in height, you see? Even here I've done the same thing. I've decided here, compact height and regular width, to go 5 across and 4 down. And down here, in regular in both directions, I decided it looks a little better to have the 4 across and 5 down. Okay? Now, you would imagine if I wanted my calculator to work this way, I might have to build 4 different UIs. 1, 2, 3, 4, for all 4 of these. Okay? And that would normally be the way it is, except for that we actually do the size classes with a little more subtlety than that. Because if you look here, compact height always is 5 across and 4 down. Whether it's compact width or regular width, doesn't matter. And here, in the regular height, it's always 4 across and 5 down, no matter what the width. So really, I should only have to do 2 things here, okay, based on the height. I shouldn't have to do anything different based on the width. And that's why the whole size class thing is actually treated as a grid like this, with 9 things in it. And in the middle, you have this special width and height called any. Okay? So now, if I want what I had on the previous screen, all I have to do is 2 UIs. One for regular height, any width, and one for compact height, any width. And even better than that, I can actually put some of my UI here in the middle, any height, any width, and only put the differences out here in these other 2. So this is the part of the UI that's the same on both, right? I got the display and I've got this part of the keypad, it's the same on both. And it's only that piece that's either going to be here or here, okay, that is different. And that's all I'm going to have to do in these 2 things. All right? So we just add this idea of this any width and any height to make a 9-way thing. And in your storyboard, you can actually go to any of these 9 squares and edit the UI. Okay, and that's what we're going to show in our demo here. Okay, so I'm going to do this calculator thing, exactly what I just showed there. And we'll see what it looks like to do this size class business in Xcode. Okay, so here we are in Calculator. This is how we left off in Calculator. Actually, it's a little different because this is the version that before we did that save restore, so I don't have save restore. So otherwise, it's just a normal calculator thing here. I'm going to start right off by noticing that I have these warnings up here. You see this yellow triangle that's all over the place here telling me about warnings? What are these warnings? If I click at them, oh, it's the old frame will be different at runtime. You guys, I'm sure, are well acquainted with that thing. You get it all the time when you're doing auto layout stuff. And you know the fix to this. Anyone want to tell me what the fix is for this? What do? Go down here, right? Select this view controller. Go down here and say update frames, right? Okay, let's try it. Oh no, it didn't work. What's going on here? Okay, so have you seen this where you do this update frames and it doesn't work? I'm sure some of you have seen that as well. Okay, well, I'm going to show you another way to fix this, okay, which is also not going to work. In the document outline, so here's our document outline right here. You see this? I told you that the document outline is kind of the headquarters for constraints. In fact, here's all my constraints. Okay, look at this little guy right here, this little button. This is telling me there's a problem with your constraints. And you can actually click on this little button, which I'm going to do, and it'll show you all the places, all the misplaced views in this case. It's going around showing them. I can even highlight them as I mouse over them. And you can even fix them. If you click on this little triangle right here, it'll come up and you can do update frames to fix this. You can try and update the constraints to match what's here. I recommend against that generally. because it's going to put hardwired constraints in there to try and hold that thing in position. That's usually not what you want. You can also reset to suggested constraints here. That might be something you want sometimes if you know that you put it on the blue lines, but usually you want to try and update frames. And you can even apply it to all the views in the container, because we know we got 5 problems right here. So I can click those and hit Fix Misplacement here, and that should fix it. Nope, it didn't. Okay? Now, I'm not exactly sure why either of those things didn't fix it. It should have. But I'm going to show you a tricky way to fix this misplacement problem, which is just pick up something, okay, that's misplaced like this, and just put it back down where you think it's supposed to be. Okay? Voila. Okay? For some reason that causes the entire constraint system to reevaluate. Everything's in the right spot. No issues. See? No auto layout issues here. No yellow buttons up here. Okay? So that's a really nice little trick to know. Okay? Just pick the thing up and put it back down in the right place. Might fix everything. All right? Okay. So let's talk about our calculator here. Our calculator wants to use size classes so that instead of being 4 across and 5 down like this, okay, in compact situations, it's going to be 5 across and 4 down. So I told you there's those 9 little spots. Here they are right here, right down at the bottom. You see this W, any, H, any? That tells you you're editing width any, height any. And if you click on this, it'll show you all 9 of those areas. Okay, just mouse over them. So the middle one is any. Okay, up here, this is compact height, any width. This down here is regular height, any width. Okay, here is compact width, compact height. So if I were to click on this and go edit that UI, what device would that UI be on? iPhone 6 in landscape, right? Or iPhone 5 in landscape also, okay? Because that's the only one that's compact. So this is actually specifically choosing a non-plus iPhone, okay? So you can pick any of these positions that you want. Now we know in our calculator that the compact height one, okay, is the one that we want to move these buttons down to the side over here, okay? Here's the compact height. Now, I'm going to show you a feature here that you might be inclined to use with size classes, but it's not going to work for us, okay? But I want to show you how it works, which is I might just start by saying, let's at first at least get rid of these 4 buttons when we're in this compact version, okay? See here we're in width, any, height, compact. We're editing this UI. Changes that we make in here are only going to apply to this size class, okay, which is compact height, anytime we're in the compact height. Now, we can only make certain changes in here. Like we couldn't inspect objects and change their color. That's not going to work. But we can remove and add views, and most importantly, we can change constraints. Okay? Those are the things we can do. So I said we can remove and add views. How would we remove this stack view? Let's say we don't want this x divide plus minus stack view. We just don't even want it in there. Well, we can go over to the inspector, okay, inspect this thing, and look down at the very bottom. Okay, this is just the inspector for the stack view. And the bottom, it says right here, installed with a check. That means it's installed in all size classes. And if we didn't want it installed in this one, we could actually click this little plus and pick this size class, which is width, any, height, compact, or we could actually pick any other one we wanted. Okay, so we can pick any combination we want. Since this is the one we're editing, it's the kind of the first choice right here, any width, compact, height. So I'm going to pick that. And when I pick that, it breaks that one out. It's still installed, but it breaks that one out with any height compact. But if I click this off, it will no longer install this view in this size class. So now, anytime I'm running in an environment where it's compact, that view, that stack view, is not even going to be there. Okay? If I go back to any here, it's still there. Okay? It's only in this compact height that it's gone. Let's go run and see if this is working for us. All right, here we go. It's 5 high and 4 wide in portrait. Looks good. Okay, hopefully if we go to landscape, which we know is compact height, it should get rid of those 4 buttons, right? It did. Excellent. See, the size class stuff works. And now we'll just go back over to portrait. Oops. Okay, look what happened there. When I went back to portrait, it tried to put that stack view back, but the size class system can't put things back into other view hierarchies. It can only put it back at the top level. So it couldn't do that, so it decided to put it back. It just put it back at 0, 0 up there. Okay? So that's clearly not what we want. That's clearly not going to work. So we need a different strategy. But I just wanted to show you that there is this feature where you can use this mechanism to decide that certain views exist in certain places. Okay? And you're going to see this is going to automatically happen when we start putting views in, different kinds of view, vertical, stack views, and things like that. You'll see that this will automatically be happening for us. So I'm going to undo here, get that thing back. Okay? So let's get this back in our width to any horizontal compact. So that's not going to work. So what can we do instead? All right, well, since I know I can't have this thing inside this stack view, right, working, I'm going to have to pull it out. I'm going to have to pull all of these things out of the stack view. So let's just do that. Okay, I'm just going to move this thing. And actually, you know what? I'm going to do all this in any, because when I think about it, I can't have this here in any, otherwise it's always going to appear there, okay, in other ones. And I don't want it there on the top in compact. So I'm going to take this whole stack view right here, okay, this one, the one that I don't want here, and I'm going to just delete it. I just hit cut to delete it. Okay, so now in the any, that means on all size classes, that thing is gone. It's not there. And what's more, I'm going to take this stack view right here. I'm going to pull the things out of it. So for example, I'm going to pull the display out of it. Okay, I'm going to take this inner stack view right here and pull it out, leaving this empty stack view, okay, which we don't even need anymore. So I'm going to delete it. Okay, so now this is all part of all size classes. Right? This is in all size classes. In the compact case, it's this with buttons down here. And in the regular case, it's this with some buttons along here. We all agree with that? So in any, we always want to build as much of the UI as we can that we know applies to all size classes. Okay? So this one, we know that this is going to go in the corner down here. Right? And we also know that this goes up at the top. Right? And we can even do the constraints here, or at least some of the constraints. So I'm going to go down here and reset all of our constraints by picking clear constraints. In the same place you do update frames and all that, I'm going to clear constraints to get all these constraints out of here. And now I'm going to put new constraints in. Now this part is exactly what you're used to. I'm just going to control drag to the edge here and hook up that trailing space. I'm going to control drag to the bottom down here. Okay, and sit at the bottom. I'm going to, for the display up here, control drag to the top, control drag to the leading edge, okay, control drag to the right edge. Okay, so look, no errors, no auto layout issues over here in my document outline, no little yellow things, everything is perfectly fine. I can even run right now. Let's run and see what happens. Okay, so here it is in portrait. Okay, it's doing what we want, which is this down in the corner, this up here. Of course, I haven't added the buttons that I want right here. And how about in landscape? It's working here too. Of course, I haven't added the buttons here. All right, so it's putting the display in the right space. It's keeping these buttons over in the corner. So this is great. Okay, it's all working fine so far. Now let's go and fix the two size classes. So let's start with compact height. Okay, in compact height, actually let's start with regular height because it's the most similar to the other one we had. So here's regular height. Unfortunately, it's so big I have to scroll up and down. But in this one, we basically just want to take these things. I just pasted them back. I had cut them before. And we just want to put it right here, okay, right along the top. Now, the problem here, though, is that we need to put some constraints to make it be the same as the rest of those buttons in the stack view, right? So how are we going to do that? Well, there's a couple of different ways we can do it. One is with these menus down here I told you about. So I'm going to select this one, and I'm going to select this one. So these two views are selected, this whole big stack view here, and this stack view here. I'm going to go down here, and we're going to look at these alignment and pin menus. So here's alignment one. And here we could do things here to, for example, align the edges of these things. So it might make a lot of sense to take this guy and have his leading and trailing edges aligned with this one, right? So let's try that. So I'm just going to turn on leading and trailing edges here to align those. I could also align things like the horizontal centers, vertical centers. I could align it horizontally in the containers, centered in the container, etc. But I'm going to do it. Also notice it's going to align the leading edges with no delta. It's just like right along the leading edge. So I'm going to add those two constraints. Okay, it's added the constraints. Now, what's interesting here is now these constraint complaints are red, not yellow, red. And why is that? Okay, well, let's go up here and look at this. And it says vertical position is ambiguous for stack view. Okay, it says it over here as well in my document outline. It's saying this guy has no vertical position defined. And in fact, that's true. It's just floating there. There's nothing that says where it is vertically. We've defined where it is horizontally, but we haven't defined where it is vertically. So to do that, I'm going to go back to our control drag. Okay? So I'm just going to control drag from this one to this one. And this time I'm going to put vertical spacing. Okay? Now he's got vertical spacing. So now his problems right here are just the frames are wrong. Okay? And again, I could pick up this thing right here and try and put it there. I could pick this, put it down here, you know, try and move things back, or I could do update frames. But we're not done yet either with this, because we fixed the width to be the same width as this because we aligned the edges. But what about the height? Okay, we need the height of this row to be exactly the same height as all these rows. And it's perfectly legal for us to do that by going control drag, okay, from this guy down to this guy, and then saying that we want them to be equal heights. Okay? See that, equal heights? Okay, so now they're going to be equal heights. So you see how we've put this thing basically, and really stack view does a very similar thing to what we're doing right here. Okay, when you set all things like fill and fill equally, it's making equal heights and all that stuff. But unfortunately, we had to move this stack view out because it doesn't exist in some of the size classes. All right, so we're not quite done because we still want this thing to fill the whole space, right? We want this nice block that we've built to fill this whole space. So I'm going to do the exact same thing we did before, which is control drag, okay, from the edge of this and make its leading space, right, be fixed here. I'm going to double click on it, try to make it standard. That's not available, so I'll go 0. Okay, makes it wide. And same thing here. I want to make the distance between here and here be a standard distance, so let's do that. Control drag down to here. And this is the vertical spacing right here, okay, which makes this beam. Double click on that. And of course, when we click on it, it's also showing over here, not just in this little window, but it's over here as well. And here, standard is available. Okay, so we can do standard height. Okay, so this looks pretty good. In the regular height situation, we've got 4 wide and 5 high. So let's go ahead and run, see if it worked. All right, here it is, 4 wide and 5 high. Okay, let's go to landscape. Perfect. We don't want 4 wide and 5 high there, so we're just getting the any situation, right? Back to here, and it's back. Okay, so it's working fine. And now all we need to do is the same thing we just did for regular for compact. Okay, so let's go do that. We do that by going to this little 9 grid here. We're going up to compact height any width. And here, we want that same thing right here, but this time this has to be vertical. Okay, so I'm just going to go to the stack views inspector. Here's the stack view, inspecting it. I'm going to make it vertical this time. Okay, and I want to put it along here. Okay, so I'm going to use control drag to do it this time, and I can actually set up most of this, okay, using shift in here. I think I told you before, when this comes up, you can actually click multiple things, okay, with shift. So I can make it, for example, the horizontal spacing, the top, the bottom. I can line those all up. Okay? Now, I don't actually want this to be equal widths because I don't want this to be the same width as this whole thing. So I'm going to have to do equal widths by making this the same width as one of these buttons. Okay? So we do that to set those. So I'm going to control drag from here to one of these buttons and do equal widths. Okay? So that this will be the same width. Of course, we've got this whole frames are wrong. So this time, just to be different, I'll go up here and click one of these and apply it to all views and container. Fix it. Okay? So now we've got it there where we want. Again, same thing here. We want to put a vertical spacing constraint here. Okay, we'll do standard if available. Yep. Okay, and same thing over here. We will put this to the leading edge. And again, no standard. Sorry, so we'll do 0. Okay, there we go. We've got 5 wide, 4 high in this compact situation. All right, so let's run that. Okay, here it is. Portrait looking good. Landscape looking good. Okay. Any questions about that? Make sense? All right, now I want to show you a couple things about what we've wrought here. One thing is, let's look at this stack view right here. Look at its installed state down there. See that? It's not installed in any. It's only installed in any width compact height. That's exactly what we want. So see how it automatically did this when we pasted this one in? Anytime you add a view to a size class, it's going to automatically do this installed magic for you here. Okay? Another thing I told you is that the document outline is kind of your constraint central. Okay, so let's understand what the document outline is telling us about constraints here. Okay, here's all our constraints. And notice that some of them are grayed out and some of them are dark blue. See that? Well, as you might imagine, the grayed out ones are constraints that only apply in other size classes, that don't apply here. So since this is any width compact height, we're not seeing any of the constraints that have to do with any width regular height. Okay? But if I switch over, okay, watch these carefully right here, you're going to see some of these are going to go light gray and some of these are going to go dark blue. Okay? So I'm going to switch down here to any width regular height, which has different constraints. You see how this changed? So you can always tell which ones apply to you, okay, by which ones are dark. Now, another thing you want to do when you are using constraints is to go magic number hunting. Okay? You want to look at these constraints and hunt for magic numbers and get rid of them, unless you really mean to have one. Okay? Very important. So in here, let's find some magic numbers. Okay? Here's one, 8. Here's 282. 82, 8, 8, and 20. So those are all of our magic numbers right there. First thing you want to do is you can only hunt for magic numbers in the ones that are dark blue. Okay, you can't, these 282 is in some other constraint in some other size class, so you just ignore it here. It's like you're not even seeing it. But this 8 right here, okay, this one we do need to look at, okay, because we just don't want this magic number here. So what is this one? This is the display's top to the top layout guide's bottom. It's this one right here. Okay? So that's 8. Okay, let's go ahead and inspect this. We're inspecting this constraint. And you can see that it's 8. And really what you want to change that to is standard value. And when you change that to standard value, look, the 8's gone. Okay? Now you might ask, where did that 8 come in first place? Well, probably we dragged that thing and used a blue line to put it there, and it was 8 points from the top, and so when we added constraint, it added it as 8. But what we really wanted was standard distance. Okay, how about this one right here? This is the stack view's top to the stack view bottom. That's this one right here. Okay, that one is a magic number, but that's the wrong magic number. Because what is the distance in all these other things? In this stack view, what's the spacing? It's 10. Remember that? Okay, so we want the spacing between these two stack views to also be 10. Okay, so this constant wants to be a magic number, and it wants to be 10, and it truly is a magic number. Okay, so we want that magic number because we intend it to be a magic number. All right, how about this one, 20? Okay, stack view bottom right here. That one also, we probably don't want that to be a non-standard value, so I'm just going to pick standard value. Okay? And we'll do the same thing in our other size classes. So we'll go here. This one right here has this stack view leading to stack view trailing. That's right here. See it highlighted right there? That wants to be 10. What else do we got here? Anything else? No. All the rest of these are good. And don't forget any when you do these things. So we go to any. That one looks good. They're all good. Okay, so I have no magic numbers now. So my UI is all nice and arranged. Now, why do we want to get rid of these magic numbers? Because the built-in numbers, the standard numbers, are going to be the same in every single app, not just your app. So when people are running other apps, things are going to look similar spacing, et cetera. And that's what you want, because you want a consistent experience, not just inside your own app, but within 2 other apps as well. What else did I want to show here? We talked about insufficient constraints. We We talked about all that. Okay, conflicting constraints. Sometimes you'll have conflicting constraints, like two different constraints that are trying to constrain the same two things, and they'll be across size classes. Those can be sometimes hard to find. Okay, let's say I have my calculator app here. Okay, I'm looking at any here, and I go away for a few months, and I come back and I look at this, and I forget the fact that I have these other size classes over here, and I look at this and I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot to control drag this up to the top. Oh no, I better do that. Okay, vertical spacing, and I better put this thing over here, my lead spacing. Yeah, well, we'll have to fix that. Let's make this be 0, and we'll fix this, and we'll make this one be the standard. Okay, whew, I fixed it. Okay, everything's good. Look, I have no conflicting constraints. I must have fixed my app. It's in good shape. So let's go ahead and run it. I'm sure it looks really good. Okay, what the? Okay, that one's okay, but what a mess. What the heck happened here? And look, I'm getting all kinds of warnings on my console, conflicting constraints. You know what? So I've totally broken the world, even though when I go back into my app, it looks like, oh, everything fine. That's because when you change constraints, especially when you change any, you want to go take a look at your other size classes. And when we look at that, 2 views are horizontally ambiguous, 3 conflicting constraints. If we go down to this one down here, we got 4 conflicting constraints. When you have conflicting constraints, this little yellow thing up here will actually turn red. Okay? And then you can click on that and see all the conflicts. So these things are all conflicting. And of course these conflict. Okay? We know why these conflict. Because in any, we've fixed the edges of this stack view to some things. And in the other size classes, we've also fixed the edges of this thing to other things. Okay? Like to this thing over here, for example. So be careful about that when you when you're putting your constraints in there. It might look like everything's fine, but you could have conflicts across. So I'm going to undo all this. Let's go back here. All right. Another thing I want to show you is just to kind of prove to you what we were talking about with the compact width being on some platforms and not others. I'm actually going to go up here to a different one, which is this guy right here. This is compact width, any height. That's what this square is. So I'm going to click on that. So here's compact width, any height. Notice that it looks like any because we haven't done anything special in here. And I'm actually going to drag a button out. Okay, here's a button. I'm going to drag it. I'm going to call this button, actually we'll just do it with a label. We don't need a button. Let's do a label here. And we'll call this thing compact width, because we're putting this in the compact width, any, right? And I'll even put it right here in the middle. I'll do another control drag so you can see constraints. So I'm going to control drag to my super view, okay, and say center this vertically in the container. So now it's going to center this. So now when I run, okay, anytime I'm appearing on a compact width situation, it's going to say compact width. So sure enough, this one, that's compact width, right? We know iPhone 6 in portrait is compact width. And here, this is also compact width, because this is iPhone 6, not 6 Plus. iPhone 6 in landscape is also compact width. Okay? Now we know this is compact height because look, our times divide plus minus are not along the side, so it's compact height. And we know this is regular height because those things are on the top. Okay, now let's go look at this on 6 Plus. All right, so 6 Plus portrait is compact width. Okay? In landscape, not compact width. It's regular width. All right? But this height is the same. This is compact height because these are not along the top. And this is regular height because these are on the top. Okay, let's take a look at iPad. All right, so iPad, not compact width in portrait, also not compact width in landscape. And it's regular in height because, see, these buttons are on the top, in landscape, and it's regular in height in portrait as well. So it's regular in both directions, both landscape and portrait. Okay, now I'm going to do something here. I'm going to go back to the calculator here, and I'm going to put it in a split view. Okay, so this is my calculator right here. I'm just going to plop this thing in a split view. So let's grab a split view. I'm going to make this calculator be the master of the split view. So here's the split view. I'm going to delete this, and I'm just going to make this be the entry point, right? The split view is going to be the entry point, and then I'll make this be the master. Okay, so now let's run on iPad and see what we got. Okay, here we go. This is portrait. Here's landscape. Okay, notice my calculator is compact width when it's on an iPad, but it's still compact width because it's in the master here. Here's a really interesting one. What happens if I'm in portrait and I pull the master out? Not compact width. Okay, not compact width. Even though it's the exact same width, okay, as in landscape, it's not compact width. And that's because there's actually API in the split view that when you pull that thing out, it can pull out different distances. And rather than have them try to be changing the size class on the fly, sometimes it's compact, sometimes regular, they just said, okay, it's just not going to be regular. It's also nice because it lets you tell these two different states, okay, whether you're in the landscape as the master or you're pulled out as the master. Okay, everyone got that? Okay, so that's it for size classes. That's it for auto layout. Again, only experience will really teach you auto layout in the long run, but you know where all the pieces of it are now, and you know how to do control drag. That's probably the main thing you're going to be doing. And maybe you'll be doing these menus down here, possibly. Okay, Friday, no section again on this Friday. Monday, your current assignment, this core data smash tag, is due. There will be another assignment, assignment 6, going out next week. Not sure, probably going to go out on Wednesday. It might go out on Wednesday, not 100% sure. I'll think about it over the weekend, okay? But the topic of that assignment and the topic of next week's lectures is going to be animation. Okay, very important part, obviously, of building an app on iOS. And that's it. So I'll be here, I'm here if you have questions, as usual, that kind of business.
For more, please visit us at stanford.edu.